There is not one study saying that cursive writing is not good and it doesn't develop the brain. And
You're so right. There is not a single study that can produce anything against it.
No.
Welcome to the Homeschool Journal, a show that unpacks the joys and journeys of the classical homeschool family. Here's your host, Carrie McGraw.
Hi, friends. Welcome back to the Homeschool Journal. I am giddy with excitement today and on the edge of my seat, not only because I get to spend time with my friend Iris Hatfield, who will quickly become your friend too, but also because I get to talk about one of my favorite topics, penmanship. We're going to talk about the reasons for good penmanship. We're going to talk about the science behind good penmanship. Yes, I said science. And then we're going to talk about how do we teach good penmanship. Now, we're going to do this in not one, but 2 episodes. So stay with us for both episodes. And please feel free to share this with those who also need the support in teaching good penmanship. Are you ready? Here we go. Iris, I am absolutely excited to have you here today. This is going to be such a blessing.
Thank you, Carrie. It's a delight to be with you and discuss
penmanship.
Yes,
Penmanship.
yes.
And, this is such a broad topic. I think I've already told our listeners that we're going to end up with 2 podcasts on this topic. It is so broad. And I want to take our time and I want to go deep into the importance of penmanship. I want to talk about, how we teach it, the science behind it. There's so much to cover in penmanship. But before we do, I'm not going to let you talk yet because I need to tell everybody a little bit about my friend Iris. So if you'll indulge me and let me tell them a little bit about your background. Iris is the author of New American Cursive, and she is the owner of Huvista International Incorporated, which is a personal consulting organization or business, right, that you run concerning penmanship, right?
That's right.
Now, Iris has a wonderful husband. She calls him Wonderful Wayne, and I will absolutely attest to that one. She has this beautiful daughter, Danette Holmes, who she says is part of the reason why she launched her career into penmanship.
Correct.
From her kindergarten years all the way through to now. Danette also works for Memoria Press.
Yes, she does.
Right.
Yes.
And so, but Iris is someone that I want you all to know when you meet her, and I hope that you will come to Sodalitas this summer, our conference here in Louisville, Kentucky, where Iris, of course, lives with Wayne and her daughter. Here's local as well. I want you to know that when you meet Iris and when you're done talking to her, you're going to want to hug her. This is just the kind of person that my friend Iris is. So again, a delight to have you.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here.
So let's get into penmanship. Let's launch this. Now, I do feel compelled to talk about it in 2 ways. One, there has been and continues to be kind of an assault on penmanship, a lost art, in penmanship. And then what we're really going to delve in today is how the brain needs it.
Yes.
Right? So these 2 things, but before we go any further, let's just do a really quick delineation of 2 terms that I think everyone uses when we talk about penmanship. We use the term handwriting and we use the term penmanship. So let's kind of delineate that a little bit. What's the difference when we talk about penmanship versus handwriting, Iris?
Yes. Well, from my perspective, handwriting it covers everything. It covers printing, cursive, it covers print script is what we call it, because many younger people write in print script. They write in printing, but they connect many of the letters, the printed letters, because subconsciously it's faster. And so we call that print script. But handwriting covers all of those. And then cursive is the connected, fluid writing.
Right.
And then penmanship is the mastery and the art of cursive and writing with a pen. And so it's mastering cursive writing and lifts it up It's
Elevates it as a skill.
exactly
Right. And that's where we
exactly.
want to stay today is in our penmanship, particularly cursive.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So you have created this cause for penmanship. You have spent a years resurrecting this cause for penmanship. And so first I want to talk about how did you come to this? What made you want to bring penmanship back to the young student, no matter where they school, whether it's in a brick and mortar or whether it's in their homeschools? How did you come to
Yes.
all of this, Iris?
Yes. Well, the business that I was so interested in, the handwriting, even when I was young, I just appreciated cursive writing. And I saw in the 7th grade, I remember looking around at the handwriting of different students and how different they were, even though they were all taught the same program, but the handwriting was different. And I had a friend and she had beautiful handwriting. It was very neat and structured. And then others were all over the page. And she was neat and structured and organized. And it just fascinated me. And it led me into studying more and then also going all over the country, finding out more about handwriting. And I started a company in my late 20s in handwriting, and it was a graphological personnel consulting company. And so we have analyzed handwriting all over, from all places, all parts of the country, which is fun. It has been a wonderful journey.
And fascinating.
It's taken me all over the world, really. And it has just been a delightful experience and meeting people that I never thought I would get to meet. And so, but through the years, I saw where handwriting was deteriorating. And applicants for jobs, we help companies hire the best people for the job, and the applications that they would write just were, they had a hard time even filling out an application. Each year it just seemed to get, and I kept thinking somebody needs to write a good penmanship program. These children are not being taught. And I felt so sorry for these kids when they had that hard of time. You could tell they were bright and smart, but then trying to get their thoughts down on paper was a struggle for them. And so instead of saying somebody needs to do this, I had so many homeschool families that kept asking me, where's a good cursive program? And I had a hard time finding one that I thought was really suitable and that would do the job they needed to do. And I kept thinking, what's wrong? Because our ancestors could write
Beautifully. That's correct.
Beautifully. And I thought, if they can, I know our students
can do the same.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. And so I've researched and found that where it started breaking down, because handwriting is a wonderful thing because you can just look at history through the graphic word and the letters and everything. And it started breaking down when they started moving teaching handwriting, cursive to the 2nd and 3rd grade.
Really?
And when we had beautiful handwriting, was back before the 20s, 1920s.
That's right.
And everybody had nice handwriting. And it was because they were teaching cursive in the first
grade
year of school.
Very early.
Very early. And they taught penmanship. And when we start moving it back, what happens is that our students learn to print, which is necessary, learn their letters, but they start printing and they get used to printing. And then when you don't really bring in cursive until the last part of the 2nd or 3rd grade, then we're having them relearn
Right.
their written language. And then that's where we end up with some of our younger people having a print script because they weren't
Right.
taught
Well,
cursive.
and that's part of what we want to do here today in our episode on the importance of penmanship, because we want to talk about this experience, this
Yes.
shift, but the science behind how
Yes.
important our penmanship, our early cursive writing is to the student. So let's get into, what it does for the student. Let's start first on, what is it that penmanship, this cursive writing, does for the student, how it trains a student. Can you help us a little bit with that?
Yes. It does so much more than most people realize, because just the amazing fact that that a person can write is just taken for granted, but it takes so many things. It represents a highly complex method of expression that involves multiple brain activity,
Yes.
multiple brain functions, and handwriting requires language, memory, visualization, gross and fine motor skills, and coordination of all of that while simultaneously flexing your hand muscles. And it just stimulates
Yes.
the brain in a way that just tapping on a keyboard
does not do. It does not do. That's right. Or using your thumbs.
Yes, or using
As all
your
the kids
thumb,
do.
or swiping.
That's right.
Or swiping. But it stimulates the brain, and children get so excited. This is something they can
They can do, and they can do early.
And they can do early. And my sister, Cheryl Lowe, was very brave after I had the program fixed for homeschools. She picked up the program in Memoria Press, printed it, and she was brave in starting it in the first grade at Highlands Latin School. And she started it the first and second grade for the first year. And many of the teachers were told,
It was
first graders.
That's right. It was unfamiliar to them. That's right.
Yes.
She was really taking your beautiful work and forging that pathway early, really bringing it back.
Yes.
To where, as you said, prior to the 1920s, it had already been and resided. And that's why, we still have, I think all of us intrinsically, whether we admit it or not, have this appreciation for beautiful penmanship. Because how often will we pick up, a note that someone has written, or for Pete's sake, trying to read maybe a doctor's prescription, and it's illegible. And so we have that just natural appreciation for penmanship. And when someone presents you a beautifully written note, as has been done to me, you just really appreciate it all that much more in the art that it is when it is given to you.
Exactly.
And so, but not only that, so there's these reasons of beauty that we've mentioned, but there's these reasons of science, as you have talked about, and the development of the student. And this early development is very, very important.
It is.
And critical.
It makes it so much easier for them to learn other things. And, when we get a note or something, the respect that person had for us to write legibly, it's manners, it's respect. And everyone appreciates a well-written
That's right.
note.
That's right.
And I think that's one of the ways that homeschoolers have an advantage, is that they can teach their children good penmanship. And it's a reflection on those parents about how well they are being taught, because it's a graphic representation. So when they get a little nice handwritten note from a first grader for a grandmother That's
right.
exciting.
It is
That's
exciting.
And it's exciting for the child. And so for the child to see that they can control this, there's not very many things that a child can control.
But this is one of them.
This is one of them.
And it's not only about control, it's about pride.
Yes.
Right? It is a beautiful piece of art that they can appreciate, that they have. It's a creation of their own.
Exactly.
And it's not just the young child too, Iris. It's, I have grown children. I have teenagers.
Yes.
And I am still in the process of reminding my teenagers that are still in the home, there is a time for an email. And then there's a time for a handwritten note.
Exactly.
And what's the difference? And that's, that's kind of up to the family and what we're teaching. But to employ both is important. But when you employ that handwritten note of thanks, which we do often, it really is that next step. It really is that next, as you say, of showing someone that you care, that you are educated, that you are trained, that you possess a skill, both of the way to express yourself, but also of that graphic representation of what you're expressing.
Exactly.
So important. But we're going to get a little bit deeper.
All right.
We're going a little bit deeper into the science behind this. So we've talked about the beauty. We've talked about how it represents you as a person. We've talked about the importance of giving that respect and that gift to someone else, a beautiful penmanship. But there's a lot of science behind cursive. And I know that you and I have delved into some of these studies, So let's talk about some of these studies. And I'm going to launch us, if you don't mind.
All right.
Okay. And in launching this, I've got my notes in front of me. I just want to admit that to everyone, because there's a study that is actually very recent. But I know there's others that you have read and have access to. But this recent one really struck me because it's October of 2020. And I do want to give credit to a blog that brought this to my attention, Psychology Today. It's not always a source that I go to, but this one really sung with me. And this is out of the Norwegian University of Science and Technology. So I know that you're aware of this, but I want to share this with our listeners, and I want to be very accurate. So I'm actually going to read some of it, okay? Because I don't want to mess this up. Because I want to take our listeners into there's not just these wonderful emotive reasons and personal skill reasons for penmanship. There's some real science behind this.
Yes.
So this, the author of this is a neuropsychology professor at the Norwegian University of Science and Technology. Her name is Audrey Vandermeer. And I'm going to give a quote that she says. And the reason why this came about, or I think her study came about, is Norway has moved to entirely digital schooling. Okay, so they've removed handwriting completely. So this is what she says. Given the development of the last several years, we risk having one or more generations lose the ability to write by hand. Our research and that of others show that this would be a very unfortunate consequence of increased digital activity. So here we have this shift not happening just in our country, but everywhere. And in the study, again, I'm going to just refer to this. She and her colleagues used high-density EEG monitoring to study the brain's electrical activity and how it differed when a cohort of 12-year-old children and young adults were first handwriting in cursive, typing on a keyboard, drawing visually presented words using a digital pen on a touch screen, or with traditional pencil and paper. So here are the fascinating results, and I'm just going to give a little bit of them. The data analysis showed that cursive handwriting primed the brain for learning by synchronizing brain waves in the theta rhythm range, 4 to 7 hertz. Now, that means nothing to me, okay? I'm sorry for all you scientists out there. I'm sorry, I'll claim, lack of knowledge there. But it also stimulated more electrical activity in the brain's parietal lobe and central regions. Now, this is incredible.
Yes.
And these studies have been going on forever, Iris. This is not a new thing, but this is a new study that has come about with this definite hard shift into the digital world.
Exactly.
So share with us some of the things that you know about these studies and where
Yes.
they've been over the years.
And they have been out there. You know, have you noticed that of all the studies, there is not one study that has been done on saying that cursive writing is not good and it doesn't develop the brain. And it's
You're so right.
There
There's
is
not
not
a single
one-
study that
but
can
there-
produce anything against it.
no,
Right.
no, they didn't decide, oh, this is not good, and so we'll take it out of schools
No.
or we'll quit teaching. And so it's so exciting now because more of these brain imaging studies are coming out all of the time, and how much more it stimulates and activates the brain. And I'm glad you're bringing this out because I wouldn't do all of this and go to all this trouble if it were just for beautiful handwriting.
That's right. There's a deeper
There's a
science
much-
behind this.
Exactly. And there was a study that just came out that I have people that will send me studies, scientists that will send me
Good.
studies all of the time. And one last week that I just thought was wonderful. And the reason I think studies are good is to make common sense. I like the studies.
That's
They
right.
make just common sense. And the two types out are the kind with the brain scans and showing what's happening when a child writes as opposed to tapping on a keyboard. And this one is what I call a more practical study, and I love these as well. And it was a study titled Teaching of Cursive Writing in the First Year of Primary School. It was a
Okay.
2019 study.
Okay.
And the effect on reading and writing skills.
Wow.
It's by Christina Samario and 3 other researchers. It was done in Italy, but they designed this study really well. It's a well-designed study. And it comprised of 141 students, and they divided them up, and there were 4 different schools. And in Italy, they're not teaching cursive now either, unfortunately. And they're finding the effects of that. And so they divided them up, and they taught teachers how to teach cursive. And one group, half of the students were taught cursive in the first year of school, and the other half were just going along. Nothing else was changed. And they found that, and I'm going to have to read part
It's
of this
okay.
because
I
I want to make it
understand.
accurate. They found that number 1, the continuous movements
Yes.
of cursive was easier to learn for the students than the start and stop movements of the printers. And I've said that for years, but it's
Yes.
hard for parents to understand. And one of the biggest mistakes I see many times parents making is that they want their child to be able to print perfectly before they start cursive.
And
That
no, just that's
doesn't
right.
happen. It doesn't happen.
And it's okay if it doesn't happen.
Exactly.
We understand the importance of print.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But moving them into cursive, as we're talking about now, is what is really going to help that student and literally help the brain.
Exactly.
Right.
And then that improves their printing later.
Yes.
But there's not the reversals and all of those. The second thing that they brought out was cursive writers are faster. Another just common sense. It is faster to write in cursive
Right.
than it is the stop and start of printing. And so, and that, when I started the programs here in Highlands Latin School, I would go around and take speed tests, and the kids loved them. And they would see how many letters they could write in 1 minute.
Sure.
And this study found the same. The cursive writers wrote 16 letters per minute, and the printers wrote 11 letters
Fascinating.
per minute.
Absolutely.
And a 2010 study that I did with Highlands Latin School, I did it in the second grade,
Okay.
that's where you see the speed
Really pick up.
up.
That's right.
The second graders wrote 37% more letters per minute than the average American
Student. Amazing. Right here in our backyard.
Right here in our backyard. And only with training with 15 minutes a day.
Amazing.
And so the second grade teachers would come to me, and because it was new to them too. And second grade, she says, I can't believe how much faster my students can write.
Mm-hmm.
And we get to teach more because they're finished with their seat work faster.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to keep going because they keep up with me. So they were really pleased that they could cover more material, curriculum.
Well, I think you've hit something, another very important fact here, and you've mentioned it a few times, that, not only have other countries removed penmanship, okay, and the training thereof, but our own country has done the same thing. So we now have teachers who don't know penmanship.
Exactly.
And unfortunately, and I my heart goes out to homeschoolers out there who have grown children like mine.
Mm-hmm.
Now, mine did not choose so far to go into education, but many of their friends have.
Yes.
And they're not being taught to teach penmanship.
Exactly.
Because in this country, although it has been waning for many, many years because of the progressivist educational movement, but in 2012, when Common Core was incepted here in the United States,
Right.
there was nothing on handwriting or penmanship. No instructional material in penmanship at that time.
Exactly.
I can't say if somehow someone has realized the mistake and tried to reinsert it somewhere. I don't know.
Some
but
states are trying to legislate it.
okay, beautiful.
But they're not, no one's teaching the teachers. And now this generation, many of our young parents were not taught. And so that makes it hard for them.
It does.
And so that's why I did this program, because and we need to make it simple and easy for parents to teach, for teachers to teach. And so there's a teaching guideline in the front of every book.
Well, I'm not going to let you go too far there. Okay. That's episode 2, right? We're going to because what we're going to do here, we really want to lay out, and we have the reasons for penmanship. Both those reasons of beauty, the reasons of science, and if we've got more to share there, let's keep going.
Yes.
But what we're going to do, I want everyone to know that episode 2 is going to be all about how we teach it,
Right.
and getting into specifically the new American Cursive program and how these parents who may not have been trained themselves, how we, again, Memoria Press wants to make it easy, to guide a parent through. There is something that they haven't had the experience in, but we're going to lay it out for them. And that's what your program does. So,
Exactly.
so we're going to keep that there, but let's stay focused on the science behind.
I want to mention a couple of other things that this study, that it improved spelling.
Oh,
They did 3 spelling tests, and it improved. The cursive writers did better on spelling test. And the reason was that, or what they were saying, and I definitely agree, they see the letters as a whole. You write the word and you connect it on. They see it as a whole as opposed to the individual printed letters. And sometimes their spacing is not good. And so, and also the memory muscle that they build in writing these spelling words. But the spelling was better, and they were able to read more than the printers. So there's so many reasons for, it's not just, as we've mentioned, for attractive handwriting, and that's a goal. But
right. And then our young homeschooling families, when you get so busy and you've got multiple kids at home and you have all of this curriculum you're trying to get through.
Yes.
This is what I want them to hear, and I'm going to say this very directly. This is just as important as training in phonics and reading. Because as Iris has told us, and as we've proven through the studies that we've just mentioned here, but there are many, many more, this is something that's going to improve the reading, improve the spelling.
Yes.
This is a key skill in the young lives of our students. So Iris, I feel like we've covered our reasons fairly well, our science fairly well. So we're going to pause at this point in time, tell our homeschoolers we are so glad that you've been with us, and hopefully you've gotten your dishes done or you've had your walk and while you're listening to us. And thank you for staying with us on the science and the reasons behind great penmanship and the skill of penmanship with our friend Iris. But we're going to continue on our next episode with how do we teach it? How do we make it real? How do we fit it into our day? And what can we do? What does the program do to make sure that the parent is supported in teaching penmanship? Iris, thank you for all of the information that you've brought with us here today.
Thank you for inviting me. It's been a delight.
And we will keep going.
Yes.
Thanks. Thanks so much for joining us today. If you liked our episode, click the thumbs up button or leave a comment below and let us know what you thought. Click the bell icon or subscribe to stay in the loop and get notifications of when we have new episodes. You can also check out our other resources and videos on classical homeschool education. I'm Carrie McGraw. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next time.